how much pressure do you feel, or how much pressure do you place maybe on some of the country marketing managers, digital managers, to demonstrate some kind of ROI for the investments that they're making?
A huge amount. For every investment, whether it's digital or whether it isn't. But as Derek Scobie said from, I loved his expression, just get the chief of something to say it matters. But actually we have a thing we talk about in SAB Miller, and actually I know they talk about it in other organisations because we all nicked it from the same place, which we call the 70-20-10 principle, which is basically spend 70% of your money on stuff that you know works, spend 10% on R&D, and 20% is stuff that was in R&D last year that's worked enough. And I think it's critical in everything we do that we have a kind of a balanced approach towards our investment. And some of it you prove in advance. So you do it, you prove it, and then or rather you prove it and then you do it. And some of it, you do it and it works or it doesn't. And so you have to learn by doing. And it's a tough one. In our company, I've got a boss who's very wedded to link testing. And link testing is expensive and takes a long time. But it's got a hell of a lot of historical normative data. And the truth is that when you're doing a standard media buy, if you spent a couple of 100,000 making a film, you're going to spend $1 million or something airing it, it's probably worth the time and the money to make sure that that's right. But that doesn't have to be the case in my view in the digital world. What you do have to have is you have to have a clear and precise articulation of what needs to be achieved if you are to judge that investment to have been successful. And you have to have in place the means by which you will measure whether you achieved that or whether you didn't. The third thing is that you must have the balls to own what it is, to capture and to share what you learned. Because that way you become a learning organisation. And we talk about SAB Miller's ambition to be a self-refreshing learning organisation. So do you have to prove your ROI before you do it? No. Do you have to understand what the ROI would be if you were to judge it to be a success? Have you done as much due diligence as is appropriate? And have you got in place the means to the mechanism to measure it? Absolutely.
Thank you. I was intrigued by the situation you were describing in Colombia. Was it Aguila? Aguila. And the Facebook community there that you don't actually control, which seems a very brave thing to do, and absolutely playing to the strengths of social media, but also there must be inherent risks in it. So I was kind of intrigued at how you do monitor what's going on there to make sure it's not sending out messages that really aren't very helpful to
sure. And I mean that whole area of social media monitoring from the point of view also of public affairs, corporate governance, I mean it's a big area, it's a big issue. And also, for example, if it were our own Facebook site, we have our own very strict requirements in terms of age verification, in terms of, so it's a very tough, and honestly, we're learning, and it happened. Some people set it up and it took off. And right now we're trying to work out how we can partner without being heavy-handed corporate, but in a way where genuinely these are fans of the brand who want to share their fandom with other people. And how can we partner with them in a way which doesn't create corporate takeover? I remember Wendy at Coca-Cola, she told me they have a similar thing actually, or had a similar thing, that their Facebook, which I think they do own the page, but the editing is done by effectively people who had previously set up fan groups, and they've now been employed, as it were, to say, will you be the editors of this for us? And that kind of works for them. And I think, we probably need to start exploring how that's going to play. But I think this whole area of social media and role of brands in social media, we're all out there learning. And when you're in a category like alcohol, you've got to be very double careful in how you're learning. It's a very good question. Any other questions?
You mentioned one of the pillars, the foundational elements around education, and I'm with Dell, actually, Kathy Schneider with Dell. Do you have a policy across your company of who can be educated and conduct the social media? We've taken an approach where it's everyone, right? So our corporate policy is anyone should do it. You know, we really encourage everyone from product development, engineering, sales.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, could you touch on what your perspective is? Have you put it into the marketing department as a function, or are you similarly looking at it and saying, you know what, this is something everyone can do. Let's just follow these rules so nobody gets anybody sued?
Yeah. Somewhere between the two is the short answer. Again, there are particular, I mean, I think all corporations have got to be careful about this stuff. But the bottom line is, there's a great expression, it's the best advertising line, actually the second best advertising copy line that McCann Erickson ever wrote, was the best, I think, is still, there are certain things in life, certain things in life are priceless, for everything else is MasterCard. But their second best line is their own corporate line, which is the truth well told. And that's what advertising should be, is the truth well told. And to an extent, I think that's why that culture point, really, if you build a culture and recognition that one of the best things about a digitally enabled world is there is nowhere to hide. The only thing that will prevail is the truth. So actually make a good truth and let your people talk it. And recognize there'll be, there's a case I read recently about one of the TripAdvisor sites where a disgruntled employee had gone in and written some lousy reviews about a particular hotel, and the truth is you can't control everything. But I think a general principle that says, the nature of that space is it is open, democratic, and everybody has a right to express a view. Why would you restrict your own people from being able to speak in that space? But they need to understand what it is they're going into. But I don't think it's about training them so that they've got a script which says go out and parrot the corporate line. It's just, be aware of this is the nature of the space and be conscious when you go into that space, both personally and, I've got a 21-year-old son, and I'm very aware of stuff that's gone on at his university that's up on his profile that, Stephen went and researched me and found I followed bloody Justin Bieber. You go and look for my Sam, you'll find an awful lot worse than that. And I think people just, they need to understand the opportunities, but also the risks associated with these places. All done?
I think that's it.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic.